Okay, yeah. All right. So yesterday we discussed basic styling properties of CSS, like the color, the font size, the font style, the alignment, and classes and IDs. So today we are going to continue from that point, and we're going to start focusing on color. I believe we spoke a little bit about it in CSS, but I'm just going to um, say something about it in terms of how it works in CSS and the different type of colors we can have in because in CSS we can have like border colors, we can have like the background colors, we can have the text colors, we can have different kind of colors. So we're just going to talk about that. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is that color can be represented in RGB, which is red, green, and black. And we can represent it from, let's say, for example, this red. I mean, it doesn't have to be red, but you can represent it in RGB. And then we open the brackets, we have the red, and then we have, say, the green, and then we have, say, the blue. So this varies from 0 to 255. So we can have from 0 to 255. And when you save it and refresh the screen, this is from div2, and div2 is our last paragraph, the page. So if we save this and then we refresh the page, we will get to see that the color changes. Let me use something else so that we can. Normally when you're like using colors, you mostly just either you copy it from somewhere or you just select. For example, if I hand over this and then I select the kind of color I want, you can see you can select as any color you want as you like. So most of the time you don't just like type this, you just either you copy it from maybe some colors or you use the picker to select any color that you want. So, but in this case, we're just trying, random numbers, and let's see what we have. Hold on. Okay, let me do that on the server. Oh, sorry. Okay. I made a mistake. Okay, yeah, so that should fix it. Yeah. So now the color is showing as green because that is what we select in, I mean, that is what this number represents. And if we want to change it, we can just over it and then I can toggle this and select any of these colors that I want. But also we have RGBA. So the A is like the alpha, and what it represents is the opacity of that or the transparency of that color. So if we have the fourth parameter as A, then let's say we have 0. Let's say 0.2 or 3, whatever. But in this case, I'm just going to use background color rather than this so that we can see the effect. So if I save this and then let's go back to this. Yeah. So you can see that this is the background color, but I have 0.3 as the transparency value. But if let me increase it to say 0.9, save this. If I refresh this, and then you see that it's more. If I have it as 0.1, then it's going to almost fade out. Yeah. So that is the alpha, that is what it represents. That's the RGBA format. But in for most developer, they don't really use the RGBA format because for whatever reason, in terms of the way it's written, but so they mostly prefer to use the hexadecimal format, which instead of starting from 0 to 255, it starts from 0 to F. That is what how to represent it. So in this case, we have like we can have 0, 0. You start with a hash, then say you have 0, 0, which is the black, up until FF, which is the white. So let's say I have 0, 0 all through, 2, 4, 6 all through. So that means it's black. Yeah. So if you refresh this, you see that the background color is black. And if you have it as FF, it's also white. So yeah, just gonna be white. I don't think we're gonna see the effects here. So if we want to change it, we can also, go over this and then try to pick out the color we want, and it's going to automatically write it in the hexadecimal format for us. And I mean, I'm using this Visual Studio Code. I mean, for some editors, it's not really like that. In For like Notepad, you can't really over the color and then you select those colors. So most of the time, we mostly use some color picker. Like you go to another website, which is a color picker, and then you select the color you want. They give you in hexadecimal format, and then you just input it in your food or whatever. So that's mostly the way people do it. Nobody is trying to invent color. So from that, if you want to say change, okay, you want it to be transparent, just like we have for RGBA. You can actually like toggle it here also and select how dark or how transparent you want it to be. And then it's going to add additional, I think, additional value to the hexadecimal value. And if you want to toggle it from, say, the hexadecimal format to RGBA, you can just click on this and then you have different formats. This is RGBA, so you can then select it in RGBA and then you have your color in RGBA format. So let me create a new div, or we can still use the same div. We already have our background color. Let me change it back to yeah, let me change it back to hexadecimal format. Okay. Yeah, so we have our background color, and then let me say the color of the text. I want it to be let's say blue. Then I can also use maybe a color picker or something. We even already have something, but let me change it to yeah, the hexadecimal format. And then we have this. If I save this and then I refresh the page, we see that this maybe it's not really, but let me just change the color so that we can think see the effects. Let me choose something already. Okay. Yeah, so you can see now that the text is also changed, the color of the text. Let me have the font size to be big so that we can see it more clearly. Let me use 30 pixel. Yeah, so you can see. All right, so apart from this, we also have the border. So the border is just something around the container of that div element or any HTML element you are trying to style. So let's say I have border. Let's say we have the border width. The border width is just telling you how thick you want that border to be. And you can see there's also some suggestions of various properties that you can also use, that like there's a lot. So let's say I'm using the border width, and then let's say I have 5 pixels as the border width, and then the border style. Let's say, so the border style, let's say I want it to be mostly a lot of people use the either the dash or the solid most. So let me just use solid. And then we can also have the border color. So the border color can be whatever color you like, but let me use something that way big visible enough. Okay, let me use blue. All right. So if I save this and then I refresh the page, now you see now we have this border that goes around the container. Sometimes you might even want to have just border top and border bottom, and you don't want border left or the border at the right, or you want the border at the left and right, but you don't want the one at the top or at the bottom. So you can also change this. For example, you can say the instead of this border width, I believe it is called border um top width. So the border top width is 5 pixels. And if you refresh this page, the border top width is 5 pixels, but the other ones are going to pick up the like the default value. So if we don't want that, we can also say the border top style. So the border top style to be solid. And then we can also refresh this, and you see now all the other borders are gone except just the border top. So similarly, you can do the same thing for the border bottom, the border right, the border left, and whichever part of the container you want the border to appear on. So one thing again is that there's something called the shorthand properties in CSS, whereby you don't, instead of having this border, like for example, I have the border width, I have the border style, I have the border color. So instead of this, I can rewrite, let me just comment this out. So we have this. So I can, instead of that, just do border. And then I have the border width. Then I have the border style, and then I have the border color. So if I refresh this, and then you see the border is back on the container. So this is just CSS is going to figure it out on its own, like you know that okay, this is the width, and then this is the style, and this is the color. So it's automatically going to apply those styles to the element. But if let's say you want like the border style, the border top alone, or you want border top and border left alone, like you have to specify those kind of scenario. You have to specify it like, oh, okay, this for border top, this. But if you just write border, it's going to assume that you are this you are trying to style the four side of the container or of the element. So one more thing we can do with border is that we can also have the border radius, I believe. Yeah. Once you type in, you also see you have a lot of different kind of properties that you can try, can test and see how they works. 15 pixels. So this border radius is just like the corner of those borders. If I want it to be like round a little bit or something like that, you can do that with the border radius. So you can see the edge is a little bit, curved, just like this. So that is for the border radius. Like I said, after the class, I'll share a link to reference for the CSS properties where they list each of those properties, because there's a lot of properties in CSS, like a lot, and each properties has different values of what you can have for those CSS properties. So we're just going to discuss the common ones, and they are basically, you can do the same thing for all other properties that you come across. Apart from this, so that is for the color, and we've talked about the background color. Let's say, for example, the background color. So I can, like, instead of these tags, I can have the body tags. Let me say the body tags, and then I have background color. So in this case, let's say I want the background color to be this, or let me um, choose something a little bit lighter. Okay, yeah. So we can also do something like this, select this, and the background of the page will be, we pick up that color. You can see the whole body background has changed. So that is another way. I mean, you select the tag, and then you have the background color into it, and those color will be selected on that particular element. So we've talked about the background color, and we've talked about the text color. The text color is just color. That's just what you use. So the font size, we already spoke about font size yesterday, where we talked about how to change the size of the font, and we already talked about the style and the. So these are very much related to text. All these ones are related to text. Most of the time you use it for text. But why for the borders, they are related to the how you want the elements, the border elements or the container to look like. So apart from this, we're going to talk about the pseudo classes. Is there any question before I move on?
Yes. So I think I have a question. So you can go up.
Okay.
So so that command, background color, so
Yes.
changes the whole background to the assigned color.
Yeah.
Is it possible to partition the color in such a way that maybe the upper part will have different color, the lower part will have
Yes.
different color?
So it's just like using a gradient. That's what you're saying. It's very, very possible. We're going to also talk about gradients in the coming lectures. But it's yes, you're right. It's possible to do it, and it's called gradients. You can use a gradient in CSS, but we'll get
All
there.
right, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so for pseudo classes are actually used to like define a state of an element. Let's say, for example, let me open this browser. So let's say, for example, I want the first, let me say, this T over here. I want this T to be big. Like I want it to be, I want to change the font size to be, let's say, 30 pixel. So most of the time we've been styling like the paragraph itself. And okay, for example, this one, the paragraph, we change the font size and everything is big. But let's say, for example, I want just only this P. I want the size to change, but not everything in that particular tag or that particular element. So this kind of scenario is what we use pseudo classes for. We use it to define the that special state of that particular element, the states we want that element to be in. So another example I can think of is when using a link, like you're using anchor link. You know that when you over, let me just put an anchor link into this, like say anchor tag, click here, then let's say we have an href. Let me just give it an hash so it doesn't go anywhere. All right. Yeah. So this is an anchor tag, right? And you know that when you put your mouse over it, it changes to an signifying that, oh, okay, this is a link. You can click it to somewhere else. So let's say, for example, when I over my mouse to this link, I want like the color to be something else, or I want the font size to be something else. So this kind of scenario also is you can do it using the pseudo classes. If, for example, I say, okay, maybe when I click this link or when it is visited, I want the color to be something different. You can also use the same, you can do the same thing with it. So let's try, I think it's going to be more effective when using a link, but let's start with, let me use a list. I'll actually create a list. So we have the list. So let me say this is one, just gonna copy it out. So let's say two. Okay, fine. So now we have a list, and then to define a pseudo class on an element, you are going to use we have the list, and then we're saying that we're going to use a column. So the column is what signifies that, okay, this is a pseudo class, and then we want to apply a pseudo class to this particular element. So we can say the first child. So the first child should be, let's say, the font size should be 20 pixel. Now, if I save this and then I go back to the page and I refresh it, you have, okay, we can't really see the difference. Let me go it. Yep. So you have the list. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, but then the first child of that list is going to take that particular CSS properties. You can also change it. Let's say, for example, you want like the the third child or the fourth child. We can have, okay, let me, instead of the fourth child, let me say the last child. You can change it to the last child, and then let me actually copy this so that we just have something different. So let's say the last child is what we're trying to, then we can say the last child should be, let me change the color property to, let's say, green. So the last child should be green there. When you refresh the page, and then you're going to see that the last child is indeed green. And the rest of the list is now taking that specific properties. Apart from this, you can also have, let's say you want a specific number, you want to pick a specific number out of those lists. So you can say the nth child. So when you have the nth child, the nth child is going to take a parameter, and that parameter can be like, say you want to pick the second one or the third one, you can use maybe two, you can use the number, or three, or whatever number you want. Another thing you can do is that you can say, for example, you want to style all the even child. So you can say even, and then you can have this as, let's say, the font style should be we can use the italic because that's the one that is going to show the difference. So the even child should be let me just add one more to this, so that it's going to be 5. So let's finish this. Yeah, so you have one, you have two is italic in, and then 4 is also italic. As you can see, the font style change for those 2 and 4 values. Why the rest? Now 5 is taking the green color because 5 is now the last child, and the last child is no longer 4 as we previously defined. So that's why. Also, instead of even, you can use odd, like odd. And then when you refresh this, you can now see that 2 and 4 is now normal, they looks normal. And then 1, 3, and 5 are now taking that italic properties. So that is one thing you can. And another thing is, instead of specifying the odd or even, you can also specify the child that you want to, the list of, so let's say nth child, and then, so this is odd, so let me just say 2. Then I can simply say, let's say the font size for this should be like 50 pixel. So if you refresh this and then you go to this, you see now the value 2, child 2, is now taking that specific font size. So this one is for the list. I also mentioned the link. Let's say you want the link to change color for a specific state. So you can use, you can also do the same thing. So this is our link over here. And then you can have a link. You can do this actually. You can do, let's say, for example, you have this. If you have a link color, you see now the text changed to red because that is what we specify. But mostly people don't normally do this. We mostly specify the states that we want. So let's say you can have if you want the state of the link or the anchor tag to be, when I hover onto this thing, I want it to change to, let's say, yellow. I want it to change to yellow when I hover it. But when the link itself, when nothing happens to it, I just want the color to be, I want it to be green. Let me put a font size so that we can see it clearly. Okay, so let's refresh this. But now you can see the color is green because this is what we specify for it. And the font size is 30 pixel because that is what we specify for it. But now when you over onto the link, what we're saying is that when I over onto this link, I want the color to change to be yellow. So now let's see what happens. As you can see, once you over onto it, it becomes yellow. And when you remove your hand, your mouse from it, it changed back to green. So that is the state of that particular link. Another thing we mostly have in link is that the link is always on the line. The text is always on the line. So we can remove that using another text property. And the text property is called text decoration. Text decoration. So we can say none. And when we refresh the page, you see that it is gone. So let's say we want to have this underline when we are hovering um, onto the link. So we can now say underline for when you hover onto that link. So when you refresh the page and then when you hover onto it, the color is going to change to yellow and the link will be underlined. So that's what we have. So the color changed to yellow and then the link is underlined, signifying that, oh, your mouse is active there. Another thing we can also do in link is that we can have the active states. So the active states just mean when the link is like click in. Let's try it. Let me try it. So when the link is active, let's say the color to be, what can we use? We use every color. So let me just pick this and then let's see the effect. So let me refresh this and then this is it. It's yellow. But once I click on it, trying to, click that link, it changes to the color we specify. So which looks like a brownish stuff. So that is active. This state is the normal link state. The color is going. We over onto it. The color is yellow and underlined. When we click it, it changes color to, that's the active state. So that means we are trying to click on it. It changes color to the brownish color we specified. So that is another one. Which other property can we do? Let's see. Let me see. Okay, so after the active, we can we already have we already have the link. Okay, so that is for link. Is there any question so far?
Okay, so I have a question.
All right.
So when you want to define your list, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, so you use U1. So that U1, is it a command
Oh,
or
okay.
is it a selector, or maybe you just use to label all those lists? So
Oh, okay. So this is an HTML tag. This URL is just like it means unordered lists in HTML. I didn't know that you guys didn't maybe discuss it in HTML with, so I should have explained it. I thought maybe you guys already talked about it in HTML
okay.
class. So UL is actually unordered list, which means you can use it to specify any amount of item you want in a list. That's basically what it means. And then you can then specify your it has so li, which is now called a list. So the list tag is what you're going to use after the UL tag to have your then you put in your whatever content you want, like 1, 2, 3, or any list of items you want to write. There's actually another one, I believe it's called ordered list. So this ordered list, you can also do the same thing. Let's say you have list of, say you have two, and then list of, say you have three. So this one, instead of having page, so the So this one, instead of having just like this, what call this style that looks, I think, circle or something. So it's going to order it in like label it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or whatever amount of list. You can also remove this property. Let's say you don't want this 1, 2, 3 to appear beside it. You can also remove it if you want. And I believe they use the style of none. What? No. So let's see this. Let's use another style if it's not gonna or instead of using this, we can also try this. Yeah, so we can also use this in CSS. But I believe there is also an HTML properties that also remove that do the same thing. But if not, then we can try this. So basically what it does is just remove the style that was append to it before the content. And also, if we let's say we want to change it, we can also change it using, say for example, we can do let me remove this and instead use this. We can do, say, square. If I use square and I refresh this, you can see we have square. If I use circle and I refresh this, we have the circle. So if I can also even do like a Roman figure. Let's say we use the upper Roman, I believe, then you can refresh it and then you see you have 1, 2, 3. So that's basically list. So you just used to list an item in HTML. That is what it's used for. So that's why when I said list first child, so it's just going to look at what is the parent. This is the parent. The parent is the UL, right? And then the list is the first child of that parent. So it's going to apply that term style to it. And for this one, the last child, the list, this is the last child of this parent. The parent is the UL, and then this is the last child, and then it's going to apply. So that's just the way list work, just to append list items in HTML. Um, I'm able to answer your question clearly.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Mm. Um, Another thing is we can also talk about the pseudo elements. Yeah, we spoke about the pseudo classes that we use this special column to define those pseudo classes. But for pseudo elements, we use the double, let's say for example, we use the double column. to style it. That's for this is pseudo elements, and the single column is pseudo classes. So for pseudo elements, what we mostly do with it is that we use it to style a specific part of an element. That's what we mostly use it for. We use to style a specific part of an element. So let's say I have a text, um, let's say I have an H2, and then I want like the, or let me say I have a paragraph, a multiple paragraph, like paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I want the first line of that paragraph to be, say, another color, let's say red, or I want to change the font size for that first paragraph, the first line, not the first paragraph, but the first line. So I want to change it to something else. Then I can use the pseudo elements for it. So this is, we have paragraph here. These ones, they are all paragraph. And then let's say I want to style just the first line. No, this is an H2 tag. So this one is the first line. So we can apply that to it using pseudo elements. So let's say I have the paragraph, and then so I have the first line, and then can say the font size should be, let's say, 25 pixels. So let's even look at the paragraph we have so far. We have, this is an H1 tag, this is an H1 tag, and then we have the paragraph tags, and then we have multiple paragraph tags. Okay, so let's refresh this and see. Okay, so now we have, this is an introduction, this is a paragraph, and this is a paragraph. So this is going to apply to each paragraph in their in each. Let's say we have different parents. Like for example, this one we have parents. This one is another parent to this one. These are the child. This one, these are also the child. So for this one, the first line paragraph is this. For this one, this is the first line paragraph. And then for this one also, this is also a parent. This paragraph, this article is the parent to this paragraph. And then for the, but let me do something. Let me specify so that we can differentiate this. Let me just create another div. I'm going to, then I'm going to specify. So I'm just going to do this. Yep. Now I'm going to specify a class for this, and then I'm going to give it, let's say, I said pseudo, right? Let me give it a pseudo class. So basically, I'm going to use this, and then we talked about classes yesterday. So I'm going to specify the class name, and then I'm going to say also now, the paragraph in this class, I want the first, let me do something, let me have the same thing, but I'm going to use a break line instead of using paragraph, because each of them are just a single line, so that they can just be one line. I mean, one paragraph. Yeah, so let's save this, and then we have this, this, and we have the same thing. So here we're saying that select this class. This is a class, pseudo. That is the name of the class. Then inside this class, select the paragraph, and then the first line should be this font size. So this is just one paragraph, right? So let's say I have another paragraph, but in this case, I'm just going to use the Lorem class so that we have a lot of text. Yeah. So this is also another paragraph. But in this case, I'm just going to add a break line here. Also add another break line here. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so now we have two paragraphs. Now, this one is the first paragraph, this is the second paragraph, and then we're saying that for each of those paragraphs inside this pseudo classes, change the font size to 25 pixel. So let's see what we have. So now this is our paragraph, the first one in the same pseudo class, and then this is the second one in that same pseudo class. So like you see, the first line for each of these paragraph, the font size changed to 25 pixel that was specified in the CSS properties. I'm sure we understood what this implies, this dot pseudo. So it's just pointing to the class that we specify um, on this HTML element. That's just what it means. Like this is a class. This is what we want to focus on. Don't focus on any other HTML element. We don't care about all this one. We have this class. This is what we want to focus on. Take this class and apply this to the paragraph inside of this class to font size of 25 pixels. So that is one pseudo element. So another one we can use is the first letter element. So we can use the same, let's use the same class. So let me just copy it. But instead of the first line, I'm going to use the first letter. So the first letter, I can say, okay, let me use 20 here. But now, for the first letter, if I want it to be bigger than 20 pixel, then I can say, okay, the first letter for each of those paragraphs, I want it to be 50 pixel. So when you refresh this, and now you see the first letter are bigger than the rest of the text in that same line. So that is another element. While we can also use another pseudo element called the before and after, but people mostly use this before. So let's try this before. So we can have let me see, okay, let's have paragraph, let's use the after. So when you have this, you can now say, after this paragraph, I want you to append like a text or anything to that element, to that paragraph element. So let's say you're going to specify the content. What is the content? Let's say the content is append. Let's just say it's append. And then we can have maybe we don't really need, let's just append it. But this, let me use the same pseudo class so that we don't deviate. So I want the contents to append to to this paragraph class after the main content. So let's say this is this paragraph. After it, I want you to append a content to it. The same thing applies to this. After this, I want you to append the content to it. So you can see that at the last text, we have append, because it's basically appending that text after the last text in the paragraph. Like I said, there's also before, so you can try that maybe when you are doing some practice. So there's also before, and That's mostly it. That's the most commonly used pseudo elements in CSS. So is there any question about pseudo elements?
Yeah, there is no question.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
but
So let's.
before we continue, so the pseudo class that you just defined. So let's assume that you want to draw a line to divide it from what we have been doing before that pseudo class. How will you draw a line so that
Okay.
on that web page you will see that okay, this line divide uh, the
Okay.
content.
So
Do
let's
you
say.
understand my point?
Yeah, sure. So let's say
Okay,
you
thank
can
you.
actually you can do that with normal HTML. So let's say you have an HTML and then you have your HR, then you can then specify, let's say you have a paragraph and then you might have like a bold or a strong inside the paragraph. My bad. Then say you have pseudo elements. So you can define this using the normal HTML. So you have a line across and then you have whatever you have.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. So that one you can do, you know. So the last thing I'm just going to discuss for today is how to use a Chrome dev tool. Have you ever been like in a situation where, I mean, not like maybe have you ever been, but sometimes you're going to come across, let's say, for example, I go to CNN.com and then there's something while I was looking onto the web page, let's say I find something and I couldn't really understand what they really did or what was going on. So we can use the Chrome Dev tools to see what's happening behind the scene. So, for example, let's say I want to. So let's say I want to know what's going on behind this text. How is it implemented? I can use the Chrome Dev to right click on it and then click on inspect my browser. All right. So can click on inspect and then I can see what is going on maybe behind the scene, what's written and stuff like that. So let me just close this and we're going to focus on using that for this. So that is so for us to open the Chrome Dev Tools, normally you can like go to your browser and then go to more tools and then find the developer tools. If you want to do it that way, that is fine. But mostly the way me I normally do, I just right click and then um I click on the inspect. So it's just going to open the Chrome Dev Tools also. So now in Chrome, we have this element is going to show us our source code. This is what we've been writing since I believe yesterday that we started the CSS class. So if you expand it, you see that this is what we've been doing since the CSS class began. And also, as you are opening onto it, you are going to see that you can see it on the web page itself that this is where you are, this is where your mouse is, this is where your mouse is, and this is where your mouse is. So what you can do is also, what we can also do is looking at this at the bottom, you can see the CSS properties. We are going to talk about this later on. Let's just focus on the CSS properties for now. So you can also see the CSS properties when you click on it. Any one of them, you can see the CSS property changes, and then you can do whatever you want to do to it. But one thing we're going to do now is that um, if we're using the Chrome Dev Tools, and let's say, for example, you are trying to, you know, check the font size. Which font size do you think is going to be perfect for this text? And then you, instead of going to your web to your code and then changing it and then coming back and then refreshing your page or looking at your page, it's kind of a little bit time consuming and a little bit slow. So what you can do is you can just come to the Chrome Dev Tools and then just change it and then see. If you look at, okay, this is what we are trying to change the font size. So if you change it, you're going to see the instant effect, and then you can try to adjust and see, oh, okay, this is the way I want it to look. This is okay. This is not okay, and stuff like that. So once you get the perfect size or the perfect value that you prefer, you can then go back to the code and then change it in your code. Because the way it looks now, if you leave it like this and then you refresh, it goes back to the default settings, which is 30 pixel. So you still have to, once you find the perfect value, you still have to go back to your code and then change that value wherever you have it in your code. I believe that that one is for link. So this is it. So the 30 pixel, you have to change it to 50 pixel for it to now be effective. One thing also we can also try to do is that remember I said when we are hovering onto this, the color should change. So we can also do the same thing in the Chrome Dev too. So let's say I want to see how this will look like when I hover onto it. I can click on over, and then you see that the color changed to yellow. If I remove it and I click on the active, you can see that the color changed. So it's just going to emulate that same state and then apply the text, the color to it. And if you check the color, you see like some are striked out and some are active. So what it simply means is that the ones that are not striked out are the ones applied to the element. But if they are striked out, so that means like this one is striked out now. So it means that this is not the color being applied anymore. Now this guy has taken over. This new anchor over has taken over the that specific property color for that moment. So the same thing with active is going to strike it out, and then it's going to apply that color to the element. So basically, you can use the Chrome Dev tools to just check different values and try to perfect what you want for your CSS property. And once you are able to achieve it, so you can just, and if I uncheck this, you can see, so it's going to make it's going to strike it out and make it unavailable on the text, and this default value is going to take over onto it. And also there are some property, you're going to see something like user agent style sheet. So let's say, for example, if I click on, let me say, um, let me use the H1 tag. Yeah. So if I click on the H1 tag, these are the styles which we apply to it, but you're going to see something called a user agent style sheet. These are like the default style that's applied by CSS. So for this H1 tag, when we write H1, you always notice that the text is always very big. So all these ones are styles that are applied by default to that specific tag. But these properties that we now define on it is going to override the default style whenever they conflict. For example, for the font size, this one is 2 EM, but this one we have 20 pixel. So it's going to pick up what we specify for it instead of the default style. So that is just basically what the user agent is, just a default style. So we can specify whatever style we want for it, or whatever value we want to give to a specific CSS properties. I think, is there any question? I think that is any
So,
question
but
before we, yeah.
so by using this inspection, so any modification you try to observe here will not save automatically in the code and the
Mm,
source file, right?
no, yeah.
So you still have to go back and do the
Change.
okay, all right.
Yeah.
It's okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Any other question?
Can you go to that CNN website?
Okay. I mean, do you mean this?
No, the CNN, normal CNN,
Oh,
the
okay,
one you
okay,
opened.
CNN. Okay, okay, okay. Sorry, man.
So yeah, so I'm just been a little bit curious. So if you look at this website, you will see that we have some. If you look up, we have some. I don't know what to call it. Uh, that's something like U.S. world politics, business, and more. So if
Okay,
you click on it, it will direct you to different pages.
yes.
So in case if we want to also do something like that, how can we do it?
Okay. This is also achievable using anchor tag, and in HTML, it's actually an HTML property. Okay, okay. Let me demonstrate it here because should have been in HTML. So you know that the one we've been working with throughout this CSS class is just index.html. That is what it is. So let's say I want to create another page. I can just create a new file. Let's say, let me just create a new file through this one. And I'm just going to go to second.html. So I can now say, let me just say, um, let me just give it a paragraph. This another page. All right. So now, if you look into the file, you can now see that we have the normal index, and then this is our new file that we just created, which is the second.html. So let's say I want to move from this index page to second.html. I can simply just do, this is our link, right? So on this href, instead of using this hash, I can now say the second source to that page .html. So it's just going to be second.html, and then I can save this, and when I now try to commit. So when I try to click on it now, you're going to see that it's good. It navigates to another page called second page. This is another page. So basically, that's just what you use. What they do is just use an anchor tag. That is all they do. So when you click on it, and then it just goes to another page. Also, I mean, you can also go to another page using some other style, maybe using JavaScript and stuff like that. But mostly, you mostly use an anchor tag. Like you see, you can see it here now. They use an anchor tag. You can see now the href is cnn.com/us. So that's literally what you do. You just use just an href, HTML property. Just use the HTML property href, and then specify the name, and then click on it, it just redirects you to that page.
Yes, I understand that aspect. But if you want it to be like, you want to put that icon in the, I don't know whether to call it header or what. So, the way they align it.
Okay,
So
okay,
in
okay.
that
You're talking
upper
about
part,
the alignment like
ye-
this.
yes, exactly.
Okay, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, it's for this one, we are still going to get to all this one in CSS, and we are going to actually like design a complete like a website, maybe not completely, but to to a standard whereby we're going to say, okay, this is a website by looking at it. So we're going to get to all this one, how to align it, how to like do alignment, how to choose the width of the page, how to give like a paging between two elements and stuff like this, how to rearrange all these things. We're going to do all this in CSS,
Okay.
and we are going to actually do it, but we're getting closer. Let's just go through the basic, and
Oh,
then when we get there,
all right. Thank you so
we are going
much.
to
Thank you.
answer all these questions. Yeah, no problem. Okay. Um, any other question so far? Okay, if there's no question, one thing I want us to do is that I would like us to just find, let's say, let me see. Okay, let me just open this page. Okay, I would like us to do this before the next class. I mean, it's not, so let me just have Lorem, gonna have another paragraph called Lorem. Sorry. And then let me say we have a div, and then inside the div, we have, let's say, so we have another paragraph, and then we have the OM. So this is what we have. Okay. Oh, but I don't want it to apply to any stride. All right, let me do something. Instead of putting it here, let me put it in the second page. I want it to be clean. I don't want it to be. Okay, yeah. So yeah, that is that. Okay, yeah. So this is just what we have. But what I want us to do is that before the next class, I want us to like just use those properties that we've discussed about. Just try them. We've talked about font size, we've talked about font color, we've talked about pseudo classes, we've talked about pseudo elements, we've talked about background color and also border size, border color, border width, all those CSS properties that we've talked about. I want us to just have a basic text and apply those properties onto it. And what the way we can use, let's say, let me open JS Fido also. I can also paste, maybe it's not necessary, but I can have maybe list inside it. So I say we have a list where, or let's say we have fruits. What else? So yeah, we can also have something like this. Yeah. So I can, let me see, let me just paste this inside GS feed. Yep. So this is jsfudu.net. So what it actually does is that when you paste, when you can create an HTML inside of it, and then it's just going to show you the results directly. If yeah, so it's just going to show you the HTML page. So I'm going to paste this link into the chat, and I'm also going to paste it. When you can click on save, and then it's going to give you a unique link so anybody can view it from any place. So I'm going to paste it in the chat. Let me bring up the chat. Yep. So you can click on it and see it from your browser. So you can just apply those properties that we discussed, the font size, just anyhow you deem fit, just apply there's no right or wrong answer, but we just want to, see those practice being put in so that we can know that we really understand what's going on behind the CSS class. So just style it using CSS, style each of those elements, or not like each of them, but just apply some of those properties to it and let's see the output. So you can use this JS video to create, you can also just open JS video, and then once you click on save, it's going to click on save and then to give link. So this is all the link you're now going to copy, and either you paste it or you send it to whatever. So I've pasted it in the chat, but I will also paste it in the group chat, and we can use that same HTML or another HTML. You can create an HTML yourself and also do the same thing. So let's just try to work on it, and we can continue from where we stop next week. So is there any other question before we call it a day?
Not at all.